Some of the cards that you're going to want to have for Genesys format. Now make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that Rescue Ace Impulse and Fire Attacker button, so you guys don't miss out on more kind. Now both of these cards kind of show up in the modern era times because, one, they act as fire monsters, so if you want to combine these into Vanquishal, you're actually able to do so. It's that little level of extra synergy that kind of helps out, but it's also the fact that this mini 2 to 3 impulse package with the 1 fire attacker ends up being a hand trap package that allows you to put a body onto the field and also lets you dig further into the deck for possible other resources. Now, in a format where hand traps can be, a little bit more scarce, or, you're kind of trading off some of these forms of interruption, being able to reliably use cards that can piggyback off of the opponent to allow you to further sculpt to, make sure that going into your turn, I could find like a Dark Ruler no more, or a card to, deal with this board that my opponent's trying to put up. One of the biggest things about Genesys format is, you will see some crazy, weird, lopsided boards. That's just how it's going to be. So you're going to be looking at all sorts of different methods to make your life easier. And I do think that the Rescue Ace package as a splashable engine within the deck is good. Now, once again, this is cards that I think you're going to want to have for all of the multi-purposing tools that they tend to get. Not every deck is going to go, I want to play Rescue Ace Impulse and Fire Attacker. But depending on the home brew that you're going for, you can very easily sculpt these into the deck and find yourself in a better position. Alright, I kind of like that. Super Polymerization. While Super Poly does have point values assigned to it, one of the things that we've kind of come to realize, even through like standard Yu-Gi-Oh!, is this is one of the best board breakers that you can rely on to crack apart your opponent's field. Now, what if you're like, well, I don't know if I really want to play Super Poly in the main deck? Well, luckily for you, there are side decks. There are things that we can work with to, better make things going. Now, most of the people that are choosing to explore Super Poly right now is usually just going to be in the main deck. You got to remember, we don't have links and we don't have, pendulums within this format. So, you're going to be focusing on the core 3 of the summoning methods. And Super Poly is just fantastic at that. Garua ends up being one of the better Super Poly targets to work with. Obviously, that and Mud Dragon are going to be 2 of your key components. There's also some discussion on looking at like Trif Overton, for example, being able to massively fuse multiple dark monsters together also works out. If there were something that maybe your locals has a more specific matchup for, you can look at, a lot of these archetypes that tend to have fusion monsters built into them to kind of counteract themselves. It's a little bit of a stretch, but Super Poly just provides so much versatility in the deck building section that I would rather allocate points to this, let my opponent go first, build up, whatever huge sort of field that they think is going to be their absolute best that they can put up, and then just systematically disassemble it through, a 2-for-2 Super Poly. The other cool thing is Super Poly does give you discard access to putting things in the graveyard, so that can also help out if you're playing a combo deck. Zeus and Typhon. Oh my gosh. These are by far the definition of the power cards in the extra deck. Now, Zeus is probably going to be the harder one to allocate points to because, one, you're going to have to be playing an Exceed strategy to even want to, get this guy deployed on the field. I don't think anybody's going to really question that. If you're playing something Exceed base that doesn't, fully lock you out of turboing into Zeus, you're going to choose to play the Zeus because that board wipe on that huge stat line is literally impressive. And I hate to tell you this, but even in a slower, dumbed down format like this, Zeus still has the craziest ability to break apart these boards and to ruin people's days. And, you know, I think that's pretty important. Now, Typhon, on the other hand, Typhon ends up being this kind of counter pick sort of card. Because the cool thing with Typhon is, as long as you're not getting locked out of, you know, like for synchro summons for the rest of his turn, if your opponent does do something to kind of stop your combo with where you're trying to go, you can actually just pivot on into the Typhon and be able to use Typhon to, you know, rip apart anything the opponent might be setting up. Also, having that protection above 3k is very, very good. I think that's probably one of the most important reasons to want to look at Typhon as an anti-part of the meta. It's just a card that allows you to capitalize and crack apart a board. If you noticed, a lot of these cards help facilitate breaking some sort of boards or allowing you consistency to find those cards. Alright, I know, right? It's a pretty simple day. Let's talk about Exodia, the Forbidden One here. Now, yes, I am listing Exodia as one of the must-haves for Genesys format. Now, the reason for this is very simple. Every single person, me included, you included, your mom's uncle's sister's nephew's dad that works down at GameStop that's you know, stealing all them Pokemon cards, yeah. Exodia is one of the biggest gimmick cheese decks that we can kind of think of out here. And I think that's, we all like gimmick. No matter, I mean, that's why, like, very early everybody was like, oh, you know, we can try out, you know, Mystic Mind Turbo, you know, we can try Exodia. You know, there were forced revisions on this, but you always know that when you have a slower format, Exodia is going to always breed innovation, because something about a win condition of gathering together 5 disemboweled body parts seems to be something that, you know, this community wants to attempt to do. I will say, though, I did see there's the Treasure Panda Exodia build, which looked very fun. I also recently saw a build with the idea of turboing out Crooked Cook and then just relying on Crooked Cook to slowly draw those Exodia pieces. I mean, people are playing Destructive Daruma Cannon in this format. There are main decked outs to out Crooked Cook. They are just a little bit more far and in between. I don't, if this deck were to take off in the competitive sphere, I do have a feeling a lot more people would be, you know, actually trying to push for, you know, more breakability of this. Just play 3 of every Exodia piece, but I can't draw bricks if, you know, I draw 3 right legs and 2 left arms. That'd be my luck trying to play the deck. I'd be like, oh, this is so fun. Brick, 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 brick. No way to make Crooked Cook. Pass, turn, die. And then, of course, we gotta leave Pot of Greed on this list. Pot of Greed is kind of the cornerstone of this format for what, you know, people are kind of clutching onto for the definition. Everybody wants a format where we can play Pot of Greed. You know, you have that illusion that you're like, oh, draw 2 is one of the most insane aspects of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. While this is true to some degree, we are definitely left with needing more interaction. I mean, you're trading off the point value power cards to draw maybe some not so good cards with the illusion of, these 2 cards are equally worth as much as, you know, sacrificing, you know, these other values. While that might be true, it's not always going to be the case. I have hardly seen a lot of decks choosing to play Pot of Greed as more than like a one of. But once again, the illusion of advantage is something that, you know, the old school Yu-Gi-Oh player is going to, you know, latch onto, and they're going to go, this is for me. This is what I like to see. But these are the must-haves for Genesys format. I've already seen a lot of people starting to collect a lot of staple deck cores and things that they consider to be an important part of Genesys format. And I do think that that is a good idea, you know, if something does happen to a deck. And most deck cores are like $20, $30. These things aren't massively expensive investments, but, you know, people are getting ahead of the time, so that's good. So please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out.
patrons. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.